Welcome, reanimated fans, to this week's episode. I am H.A. Conrad, suffering from a lack of sleep, but imbibing copious amounts of coffee. Here from you in Brooklyn, sleepy, but still kicking. Here with me on the West Coast is Stuart Tiffin, my intrepid co-host, as always. What's up, Stuart?
Yo, H.A., thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be on the show. Also, I like, even when you're not sleep deprived, that joke seems to always make you chuckle. So I also appreciate that.
I'm an easy target. I'm an easy audience, especially when tired. So car alarms. I have a question.
What's the
purpose?
Have they ever actually stopped someone from stealing your car or breaking into your car?
I don't think so. And so this is, this thing has been going off since 1:30 a.m. I will say that noise canceling headphones worked, though gave me an odd sleep experience. So I kind of put that on with like the Calm app. They have like these soundscapes of oceans and things like that.
Oh yeah.
So I put that on to kind of block it out, but I did have a dream of being shipwrecked. So there you are.
Yeah.
No zombies for once, but it was still a weird sleep experience. And I don't know that there's enough coffee to help me today, but I'm going to try.
You just are reminding me that I also had an epic zombie dream on Friday night, which was just like, I don't like talking about dreams, and I don't think anybody really likes hearing about dreams. So I'm not going to go into the detail. Let me just say,
what else people hate? What? Dream episodes in any film, movie, series, they are the bane of my existence. But continue with your dream episode. Continue.
Yes, but neither of the Walking Dead episodes that we're talking about today are dream episodes, thank goodness. But in this epic dream experience was just like the scope of time that it felt like, because it was quite immersive, and it wasn't one of those ones where I'm like, yes, I am dreaming. It was one of those ones where it was like, oh my God, I've been in a zombie apocalypse for 6 months in my sleep. By the time I woke up, I was relieved as hell.
So I mean, at least at this point, almost all my dreams are lucid dreaming. Like, even if I can't necessarily always control what's happening, I'm aware that I am dreaming. Do you have that experience, or does it feel super real to you?
Sometimes it varies. Sometimes I'm more aware of what's going on, and then I actually have the ability to like manipulate what's going to happen next.
Yeah, it's better when you can do that. At least.
Yes, because let me just tell you one thing that happened in my dream. I'm just going to say 2 words: zombie sheep.
Oh, yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. No, it took a turn that I was not expecting.
Actually, like a few weeks ago, I had a zombie rabbit thing happening, and that was upsetting. I only can blame the Easter holidays for that one.
Yeah, well.
But yeah, when it's something innocuous and strange like that, like what can you do? Well, I'm glad it was over, that you got out of it, that you did not age a millennia when you got out on the other side.
Yeah.
That it wasn't a time loop. And here we are, sleep deprived in Brooklyn. So not a lot in the scope of zombie news. There's some horror things coming out. I am gonna check out this weird HBO series and it's a UK HBO series called The Baby. Has a little bit of like the sort of the Omen vibes, sort of Damien vibes going on. But apparently a woman ends up with like a cursed baby that can like destroy other mortals or something strange like that. And she keeps trying to apparently get offload the baby, but the baby is refusing. The baby wants her to take care of him. So it's getting it's getting good reviews, but I can't tell if it's good. So I will watch it and report back on that one.
Okay. Makes sense. Sounds good. In other news, this isn't zombie related, but Matthew Lillard has launched a studio called Midnight Movie Club. And their first film is going to be a vampire picture, high concept. Another interesting element of this is that this movie studio is going to be powered by NFTs. So I guess if you buy an NFT with the studio, you get access to the membership board, and you can make filmmaking decisions alongside other members. So it's a little bit like crowdsourcing, or you see people with their Patreons If you are a patron at this level, you can decide what we're going to talk about next month or whatever. And so I guess that's their model.
It seems like a bad idea, and also
for
not
the amount of money it
sustainable.
takes to make a movie. Yeah, I feel like this is a bit
And also all the
sketchy.
things that we've been seeing about NFTs, how that's like obviously being manipulated. I don't know that this is a sustainable business plan, but we can see what happens with it. I do like him. I think he's fun. So maybe we'll see a different thing come out of this. Has to be some other money in the background. They can't solely be like, they just can't be the only thing there.
He's got all his Scooby-Doo money, so
I know, right?
actually I think he's also a partner with Beetle and Grimm, which is this like really bespoke, custom, high-end D&D product company where they make so Dungeons and Dragons, the company Dungeons and Dragons puts out a new adventure, and Beetle and Grimm's will take that adventure and like wrap it in leather and put in like crystal dice and like giant maps and then sell it to you for $300. So
Well,
I think he's involved in that company.
well,
At
maybe
least
it's coming from the Beetle and Grimm money then.
maybe it is. Either way, you know that I love me some Matthew Lillard, I guess.
Yeah.
I hope it does well.
I hope so too.
It's a disruptive idea, so it's cool.
It is. It's all good. And a little bit more to come on this, but you know, if you're watching Moon Knight, and then there's like some Doctor Strange kind of zombifying news. So looks like in the MCU universe, there's potentially some zombie action maybe down the pike. Moon Knight, I have not yet seen this episode, but apparently there were some zombies in that made an appearance in like the third or fourth episode of the series. And then Doctor Strange, there's been things that sort of indicate that this may be going to be potentially in the new movie. Is that right, Stuart?
Well, we've seen those stills, and I guess more clips of zombies are coming to light, to the point where, you know, we are under a huge amount of pressure from special guest Kyle Diaz to review this movie on the podcast, and I say we do it.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to like give in to the pressure of Kyle Diaz, but if he asks nicely, maybe.
No, this is extreme prejudice. I think
so anyway, so we'll have to see how that comes, and if it makes sense to do so, I think we should do so. Regardless, we should talk about him.
I mean, we've talked about Fear the Walking Dead episodes that only had one zombie, and it was an afterthought.
That's true.
Therefore, if this movie has any zombies,
okay.
there is a precedent here on Reanimated for us to review it.
All right. I'll give in. This could just be the lack of sleep talking. But we've got a couple of episodes to get through today, Warlords and the Rotten Core. One is very much an Aaron and Gabriel / Negan kind of episode. Not as much. Yeah. Negan, I suppose.
He's there.
And then we also have, and then the Rotten to the Core is very much a Daryl and Rosita episode, and a little bit of Mercer and Carol. And again, the whole, like, it's a continuation of the Negan, Aaron, Gabriel complex episode. So let's hop into it. You know, lots going on in all these episodes, like lots to sort of parse out. This one, I felt almost like we didn't have a ton of information, and I think that was somewhat deliberate. So basically, we've got Aaron and Gabriel, and they have been kind of like they've been doing things sort of similar to what they had been doing before. Apparently, that's what is being implied, or they have experienced sort of like reaching out to new survivors to see if they're appropriate to bring to the Commonwealth. So
well, let's back it up just a smidge, AJ. I mean, yes, Aaron has been doing that work. Gabriel, I think, has just been preaching, and he does a really nice sermon in this episode too.
He does.
But the beginning of this episode is actually Elijah on the walls of Hilltop having an arrow shooting competition with Marco, who is a known Hilltopper also. And they are like, you know, they're doing like a Legolas and Gimli sort of who can shoot the most zombies with arrows competition. It's I dig it.
Yeah, I dug that.
And then Lydia is like walking up to the front gate, like, I'm leaving, I'm going to the Commonwealth. And Elijah's like, oh man, everybody's leaving. And she's like, yeah, well, you know, I'm gonna go see what it is. And Elijah's they're also shipping now. Elijah and Lydia. Marco's like, take your shot. You got to walk with her, or and he offers to walk with her to the Commonwealth outpost that she's going to go and like surrender herself up to join the community. When a dude who's covered in blood rides up on a horse and then gives him a map and says they're slaughtering everyone, so it's a big mystery. And Maggie does not want to go and help, but Lydia and Elijah argue her, like either they're going to go alone, but eventually then she comes too. As this was happening, I don't know about you, but I was like, is Herschel going to be left all by himself in Hilltop?
I thought the same thing. And I guess that becomes clear later.
It does become clear by the second episode we're talking about. But they do show one other extra walking in the background. So there's at least one other guy there. Marco also does not come with, but you don't have a good sense of how many people there are at Hilltop, but it feels like 4 or 5. And Lydia was about to leave too, and in the last episode, Diane and a few others had left also. But then like after that, I think that's the cold open. Then we jump to no, because then they have a truck that's running and they're driving their truck to go help. Because when the fact that they have a truck that's running, didn't that trip you up?
Yeah, it did, because I thought they were sort of all out of these kinds of accoutrement. No,
I mean, I guess the Commonwealth has been driving around in trucks and they do have biofuel. So I guess they're like, really, this is a sign of how they've been helping out. But I don't know that they were doing a lot of trade with Hilltop. So maybe Hilltop got that from Alexandria or something else. Like it's the trickle down effect of the Commonwealth's impact on the community.
Yeah.
And then we go to Aaron in the.
Yeah, we go to Aaron. But can we also talk about like even the sort of discussion about going to help whatever this thing might be? I like, again, it felt a little bit like they're definitely thin on resources, and they've walked into these things before, which have been traps. This guy doesn't make a total amount of sense.
He says like 3 words before he dies. They have very little information.
They have no information.
What they do have though is the map that has their communities circled on it. Yeah.
I guess Maggie's sort of thought process behind this is that somebody either from Hilltop or who is an ally of Hilltop's had done this and had is asking for help. So I guess it sort of makes sense, but again, it seems like a little bit of a difficult mission to go on with the information they have. That's all I want to say.
And this was an important conversation. I'm glad you brought it up, because this is where Maggie tells the story of the farm before the fall, when the developers wanted to buy the farm from her dad, and he just held out. And then there was a drought, and then they started dropping off food on the front porch, and Herschel just let it all rot on the front porch. And Lydia's like, why wouldn't you, take the food? And Maggie's like, well, we didn't need it. Well, she doesn't say that. She talks around, we didn't need it, but she's like, we didn't lose any cattle. We pulled together and we pulled through, or something like that. But obviously, at the end of the day, they didn't need the food. So it's kind of like, I don't know, it kind of undermines the point of the story to me. Like, if you can, it's one thing to let the food rot, out of principle. It's another, like when somebody is just dropping off casseroles on your front steps and you're like, I just went grocery shopping. I don't know why. I don't know why you keep leaving all this food on my front porch. I mean, and I think it was actually like food for the cattle, not for the Green family. But it was just kind of like an odd story. Like, I get the point. She doesn't need the help. They can get by. Is that really going to persuade Lydia, who thinks that getting by maybe isn't enough? I thought it was an interesting back and forth. And
there's the other part where Lydia's like, but people are still suffering, and people are still like, that's a great story, but why should you have to suffer suffer needlessly? So there's a little bit of a philosophical thing going on.
And
here.
Maggie's counterpoint, which was, you really think the Commonwealth knows better? Those people haven't been tested in 10 years. And do you want to be there when they are? I honestly feel like that is a totally great point. They have a pretty decent sense of how the folks of Alexandria, Hilltop, and Rivers Bend, Oceanside, they know how they will respond to adversity. They have no idea how the Commonwealth will. And I think that is probably the biggest.
I don't think that it's an incorrect assessment.
No, but I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't often write down like bits of dialogue from this show unless I'm going to like make fun of it. But honestly, in this case, I tend not to agree with Maggie in a lot of things, but I really did agree with her saying
Yeah.
that to Lydia.
Yeah. And I mean, I think there's also the little piece where it's like, if you're under control of the Commonwealth, you're under control of them in every way. And I don't, and given her interaction with their version of the governor, basically, I don't necessarily blame her for her skepticism. Ultimately their philosophies are very different. And interestingly, the woman who basically established Alexandria, that the president or whatever her name is, that she knew,
Mm-hmm.
had a very different philosophy, and that philosophy aligns with Maggie, but this woman does not. And so, and
Yeah.
that, and if she is the one sort of dictating what the Commonwealth is doing, I can understand why that makes sense to Maggie. Like, I'm not going to be putting myself under control of somebody who I don't trust and who seems to be taking advantage of the people that everybody's trying to like pull together.
Yeah.
There's a hierarchy, there is a strata, there's an economic disparity, like, and
I,
in a world where resources are so thin, like I can understand that idea. So I agree with you. And again, kind of shocked because generally I think Maggie makes a lot of bad decisions, but in this case, I think she's correct. So
yeah. I think, yeah, we did talk a little bit about the Milton Maggie conversation Pamela Milton Maggie conversation
yeah,
last episode, but I also agree, like, well, I also think her philosophy of leadership, while it was a little bit laid out there, like people expect to see me dressed like this, it's also like this really passive approach to leadership where she's just
yep,
like, well, I can see now that I've been out here in the wilderness, there is a natural order to things that is missing, and we can't just have city states. I'm like, that isn't really a proactive leadership philosophy. That's just like this is how it should be, and so I'm gonna shift my our resources to make it so that things are how they should be. But it's such a, I don't know. I feel like they need to write better for Milton,
yeah,
or I'm not picking up on what her leadership philosophy is. But also, as we see in these two episodes, Hornsby is definitely doing his own stuff, and
yeah.
so that undermines whatever Milton's out there trying to achieve, I guess. So it's kind
Yeah.
of it's there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with the Commonwealth, but I don't know that they're going to have time, even in this long season, to really
Get into it.
establish it. We still
Yeah,
haven't seen a goddamn farm,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah. So after the cool sermon that Gabriel gives, which is really like trust your neighbor. If you've been out there in the poop, you know what it is to have to trust your neighbor. I feel like there's a real flip side to his argument, which is that like you've also trusted people who tried to eat you,
yep.
but that's not the point of what his sermon is. And then he and Aaron have a good conversation. Aaron reveals that he has a boss. His boss's name is Carlson, and Carlson is played by Jason Butler Harner. And do you know this guy?
He looks familiar to me. Remind me of who he is.
So he is an FBI agent, or an agent, I think FBI in Ozarks. If you've seen that show,
You know what? Oh, that is a show that I am gonna. Bill does not want to watch it, and I have not yet watched it. I know it's great. Everybody keeps telling me this, so yeah. So that's
okay.
on my
So
list.
I will not say any more about that. He's played a lot of characters. He's been in Law and Orders. He's been in Homeland. He's been on a lot of things. I have a feeling that this dude only plays villains. So as soon
Well,
as I saw him, I was just like, oh, okay, here we go. Here we go.
Yeah.
Uh, it's it's a good role for him. And Carlson, Aaron explains him as being like a little bit funny or a little odd, but his heart's in the right place.
Hmm.
This episode also has a lot of flashbacks and flash forwards. Again, I guess not flash forwards, just flashbacks, really. But it's like you go back 2 weeks, you go back 2 weeks in 1 hour, right?
Yeah,
There's a lot of that.
I kind of found that annoying, but
We're never huge fans of that kind of storytelling, but it does kind of help with some context, because you don't want to know Carlson's full
deal.
situation at the outset of this, right? You want to kind of you definitely piece it together as the action happens in this episode, but seeing his conversations with Hornsby are really helpful, and I guess it is good to see those later on, as opposed to if this all happened chronologically, it would be less interesting.
I guess. But
Yeah.
anyway, like Aaron and Gabriel are supposed to go to this apartment complex, which has a lot of people in it, and basically sort of vet them or offer them, to be vetted to come into the Commonwealth. Um, you know, I do like this whole scene, like especially as they're approaching this complex, because Gabriel and Aaron are both like, yeah, this isn't a good situation. This doesn't seem like something we should be getting into. And there's all sorts of things going on. Lance, who has also been basically assigned to lead this team. Um,
Lance
isn't it?
Carlson.
Sorry, Carlson.
Yeah.
Um, has been assigned by Lance rather. Carlson is like a former like we
We
his
learn later.
conversation we hear later this, but like because initially he seems like this just sort of I don't want to say naive, but a little bit of naive and also like we're just going to get up and go kind of a thing. And it turns out later that he absolutely knows and understands exactly what he's doing here.
Yeah, I mean,
And
the way he's talking to Aaron and Gabriel is totally like naive because he's like, yeah, we brought in 4 people at a time before.
yeah,
Now we're
yeah.
going into this building, and you should just trust me because this is going to be great.
Yep.
But
And
yeah,
Aaron and Gabriel are definitely skeptical for a reason, and we know why.
well,
Um,
looking at what they're looking at, do you get the same read as them? They're just looking at a building from like I don't know, a quarter
right.
mile away. There's no sign of people anywhere.
Yeah.
Where like why are they so? Why do they have that take? Do you think?
Um, I think, because I think they had been told that there had been some kind of like, interaction or something that allowed them to think that maybe they were friendly. But really there's no information and it looks much more like it's fortified and
It
they're
doesn't
coming
look
at it,
fortified though. There's nothing.
but they're coming at it from a point of weakness with no sort
Yeah,
of like, no sort of reconnaissance, no
yeah,
nothing
they have no
really going
intel. That's for
in.
sure.
And that,
I just think it looks like an abandoned building from their
yeah,
vantage, and they've walked into plenty of those.
they have, but they have an idea of the numbers here. And for both of them, I mean, I really, Gabriel's comments here are like, yeah, no, man, I'm not
No,
doing this.
I don't want to die.
And like he's like, I don't want to die. And remember, this is like, remember when they had the whole crazy Russian roulette thing?
Hmm.
And that was one dude. So like, I think that they're both definitely rightly so skeptical about doing this whole thing. And I also think that they smell a rat to some extent, because while they may not know exactly what it is, I don't think that they trust Carlson, although they don't fully understand the extent of his nature, obviously. I think they think he's a little crazy, but I don't think they understand how sort of nefarious he is. So there's that.
There's no way that they could know how nefarious he is
Right,
because
right.
honestly, this dude Jason Butler Hansen is a good actor. Harner, not Hansen.
Oh, he's
So
great.
uh, production wise, this community, I'm trying to put my finger on what it is. What is their look? It's a lot of piercings.
Yeah,
It's a
it's
lot
a
of
little.
beaded
I felt.
necklaces.
I felt like they were going a little Mad Max.
It feels a
That,
little Mad Max, yeah. The sides are a nice touch, I guess. Uh, they're supposed to be religious. There's a cross on the outside of the building. There's there's just a it's like it is a little bit like these are extras from the first 3 Matrix movies who lived in that underground
yeah.
city. A lot of distressed cotton clothes and long jackets. I don't know. It doesn't super work for me because it is too uniformly what it is. But they are scary looking.
Yep.
And they, this is it's a scary sort of disarming process. And then they're led into my extreme joy to see Michael Biehn in his office.
I know, right? Oh, Michael Biehn.
I mean, between Michael Biehn and the guy with the Russian roulette, and I forget that actor's name, and that's terrible, but that was Terminator 2, and Michael Biehn is from Terminator. He's Hudson, not Hudson, sorry, he's Hicks in
Yes.
Aliens. He is uh, Ringo or whatever his name is, Johnny Ringo, I think, in Tombstone. This
Yep.
is a guy who has been so many amazing roles.
Yep.
I wish he had stuck around longer.
Me too, but he doesn't. I mean, I felt like, so they bring them in It doesn't bode well. You got the piercings, you've got all this the accoutrement of something crazy happening. You've got a little bit of the governor vibe going on with him, a little bit.
I don't know.
Um,
It feels way fouler than the
it's
governor even
definitely
did.
Fowler. It's definitely Fowler, but like basically they go in, he's got a bunch of heads in his office. He's spouting off BS, but says he's got to protect his people. And you know, they basically Carlson just goes crazy and takes him out and has and also like it's just it's a little bit confusing. I do think that the way that they filmed this to just kind of hide different information, and that's why they did the flashbacks and things like that, made sense. But as it turns out, this is a community that Negan has been living in. And it's
Yeah, it,
I
it
mean,
does turn out that way. We don't find that out. Oh, yeah, it
later.
happens a little later. But yeah, that was unexpected. Honestly, even Carlson's sudden twist was unexpected for me. Like the fact because he was doing a great job of groveling, and then the Aaron and Gabriel talk Ian, Michael Bihn's character, down from execution to you guys should leave, and then that sudden move by Carlson came unexpectedly.
Yeah.
The fact that he like and Angela Kang talks about this as like his Jason Bourne moment, which I think is pretty accurate because he then just leaves the room and you don't know what he does, but you assume that he kills like all those people who are waiting downstairs in the
Yeah.
wings that you saw as they walked in. I thought that was pretty cool, if a little bit. It's a little bit absurd to have like a
Yeah.
Jason Bourne in Walking Dead, I guess. Also, he's not like a moral version of Jason
No,
Bourne.
no, but
He's just killing people, and we find out that he's looking for this shipment of weapons, and we find that out to another flashback. There was a convoy that was hijacked, and they think that they were the convoy remains were taken back here. That's why he's come. It wasn't to recruit. It was always just to find the stuff that Hornsby was doing. He even refers to it as quote the other thing. Which is like, yeah, who knows? But he's moving weapons around inside the Commonwealth under the radar. Milton's
yep,
probably unaware.
yep. And so I do think it was clever how they reveal all this stuff and how they reveal the different characters. Because they do it with like you see one scene and then another, and then it's like they do a flashback thing to fill in. And basically, Negan and Annie, who we find out later is his wife,
New character alert.
also pregnant. Great.
Yeah, 12 weeks or
And
so, which is giving us a timeline because we
yeah,
haven't really known how much time is passing. We had a 30-day counter, right? When Daryl was like one of our first episodes with Daryl in the Commonwealth. He was like 30 days in, and now it's been at least 3 months.
yeah, it
Feels
has to
like.
be. So that gives us something. But basically, you know, this is a community Negan is a part of, and and Annie is a part of, and they're not, you know, while Ian sort of gave a vibe that this is like kind of a crazy community, I don't think it is. I think he was just sort of like us supposed to be like a scary face to keep people out. And you know, the Carlson decides to like, well, I gotta find these weapons. I've been given a mission. He's got also like kind of Barry vibes sometimes, Carlson. Um,
Barry.
yeah, a little bit. Because he seems so nice and then he suddenly like turns and he seems reasonable until he's not.
Yeah.
And so, you know, him and his little stormtroopers come in and they're doing a search, not a very good one since there's all these little hidey holes in this building. And, you know, starts basically applying pressure. And by applying pressure, he's like tossing people off the roof. He's got a loudspeaker going so everybody knows what's happening.
I mean, when he
You know,
kills when he kills Ian, which is pretty
yeah,
like a very short interrogation
yeah,
later, he's like kicking him and then he's like moving his jaw to puppet as if he's
yeah,
talking. That's
yeah.
when they really show you that, yeah, Carlson
He's
is not
nuts. He's
not
not
all there.
playing with the full deck.
Yeah.
Um, and he's interrogating people sort of, and nobody knows anything about it, which, you know, but they're dying anyway. And, you know, so they really like and then we see how the guy that the young kid um got
Jesse.
away Jesse got away to get to Maggie and that it's Negan who gave the map. And you know,
Yeah, you know
you
what? With that reveal and these other reveals that they've done through the flashbacks, I will say this is probably the best application of this flashback storytelling I've seen in The Walking Dead.
yeah,
For a
it was
show that
good.
relies on it sometimes too much, This is
Yeah.
probably the best version of it I've seen.
Yeah. And it was great. And we see all sorts of weird things going on with like Aaron and Gabriel and how they're escaping. And it's really, I thought it was cleverly done. And so, you know, this all culminates to basically, um, you know, like with Maggie coming in to help, basically.
Yeah, that's the end of the episode. Is Maggie and her little crew are now inside. They've taken out some guards. Now they've got now I've got a machine gun. Ho ho ho!
Right.
And they are starting to clear through the building. But we're also, I don't know if we're hearing it in this episode, but like lots of people are getting killed in this building. Like it's kind of the soundtrack for the next 30 minutes of this show. Is no, like just people getting murdered. And I don't know how big this is. 40 people. I feel like we hear 40 people die in the background. They've kicked like 6 people off the roof.
It doesn't feel like there's like a lot of people left.
Can't be. But it's just going to be a bunch of a new group of nameless, faceless extras, you know.
And then this hops into the next episode, the Rotten Core, which is basically the same. It's just a continue.
Yeah. These are a good two to talk about because they basically lead right into each other.
Yeah, and you know, there's a lot. You know, Maggie and Negan still have some things to hash out.
There's a lot of hashing that happens here, also between Herschel and Negan.
Yep.
Early on in this episode, there's a conversation because Carlson calls back to talk to Hornsby to be like, "We've got the compound, but we don't have what we came here for." And Hornsby refers to these people as subhuman.
Yep.
Or he calls them rats, or it's like talking to a rat, I think he said. Like he doesn't even think, like that is an insane thing to say about people. And it definitely, you know, like the nice Hornsby that we saw at the poppy farm, like making sure that those women weren't going to get hit anymore, is certainly a thing of the past. It was just, I still think he was just acting for Carol's benefit there.
Oh, definitely.
But yeah, so, and I would like to have a little more of a nuanced approach to Commonwealth Army soldiers. I don't like it when we just see people being given unreasonable orders and everybody follows them. This happened in The World Beyond, where it was like only Huck was the only one who didn't follow orders to shoot civilians. We see it in this episode with the Commonwealth soldiers. We see in a lot of stuff where it's like, oh yeah, shoot those civilians. I'm sorry, everybody's going to agree to that. That seems crazy, but there are way too many apparently like indoctrinated SS troopers among the Commonwealth Army.
Yeah,
just pisses me off.
Yeah, and then I think one of the things I kept thinking about during this episode is that they either sort of define them as being incredibly skilled, or basically stormtroopers that just get cut down and mowed down. It really just depends on the moment that you catch them in, right?
Yeah.
So it's either like, okay, they are incredibly skilled at like taking, and we saw that a little bit in the episode at Hilltop when they go and they shoot all the walkers even amongst and that's sort of, you get that, and then you get also this scenario where they're taken out actually fairly easily by just a few ragtag little rebels, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of an interesting or weird thing that they do. And then eventually they catch up with Carlson and they give him his just desserts. It's a little Die Hard, I guess.
It does feel like a Die Hard, yeah, because he's almost like the Hans Gruber of this posse.
And even, you know, the throwing off, like eventually they throw him off the building. It's like very similar.
I think we've got a parallel here for sure. Yeah.
Right. So
except there's more than just one Bruce Willis. There's like a whole team of Bruce
Willises. So I don't know. I guess like, and that was kind of fun. But there is like, I just felt like some of this was just like, okay, how much more are we going to do of this?
Yeah, so I'm a little bit relieved though. Not relieved. Like this dude is great. Jason Butler Harner. He's great. He would have been a great villain to keep around.
Yeah.
But he doesn't last this episode. And that's fine, because even though he's like, you can't have more than one Jason Bourne. And as we reveal at the end of this episode, Leah's still out there. And if anybody else is like a Jason Bourne, it's her.
Sure.
So we're gonna have to handle that eventually. This episode also gives us another storyline, which is the Rosita and Daryl have
Mm.
to do a safe heist
Yeah.
in the zombie apocalypse storyline. I thought this was kind of interesting. This is that escapade that you alluded to that
Yeah.
we were correct in predicting.
Yeah.
It's the Sebastian driven. I thought that I really enjoyed the scenes of Daryl and Rosita as cops, eating
Yep.
donuts, speaking to each other in Spanish, which I thought was
Yep.
really fun. I mean,
Yeah,
really
that was
short.
fun.
She's just like listos, and he's like sí, but
Mhm.
it was nice. And Carol asking him to meet her for lunch.
Yep.
This was like some idyllic stuff. I kind of enjoyed it. And then, unfortunately, Daryl maybe does not pad Sebastian's ego enough when he's asking for some sort of affirmation about his zombie killing skills, and Daryl gives him like a sarcastic clap.
And just is like, yeah, he's great. Regardless, I think Sebastian would have gotten here. I think this was just inevitable. I
Why
think
why does he have control over Mercer's men?
it doesn't make any sense, especially because we've seen how his mother feels about him. I just feel like she would have basically neutralized him as easily as possible. Like if she's taken his money away, why would she give him any power anywhere else, right?
Right.
It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me. So that is a mystery that I would like solved or at least explained. Other than the fact that he's just the bratty child of this woman in power. Obvious. I feel like there's some parallels they're trying to draw here, quite frankly,
Yeah.
but very, very sort of not extraordinarily nuanced parallels between this and real life events. But basically he wants this money that's in this house and sends them off to do it.
And he
And
has the code to their safe room.
yeah, it feels weird. And so anyway, they go off on their merry way with his like what is it, elves and castle,
Yeah.
who are Sebastian's sort of like
Well, they're cronies. I mean, the fact that right before Mercer kills them both at the end of the episode, they're like, "We don't even answer to you." I'm like,
yeah,
that is insane.
yeah,
How does that make any sense?
yeah,
But yeah, so I mean, you can tell, like anybody who's ever watched a thing on TV before knows that this doesn't feel right, right?
yeah.
It's as soon as they walk outside after Daryl gave that sarcastic clap to Sebastian that they're retasked by these other two guys, and then there's a scene of them like walking, and they're like, "How much further?" And the guy, because none of these people are wearing helmets either, I kind
Nope.
of don't like it. I wish they would just look the part. If everybody else in the Commonwealth Army has to wear their helmets all the time except for
They
Mercer.
should.
But he's like, well, we're not far now, and you're just like, oh god, this is a trap, and it was. They have to do this silly guts. Guts are back. What do you think about this as like a motif?
I knew it was going to come because they used it in the episode with
They used it in
Fear.
Fear. Suddenly, like the whole franchise is like, yeah, we're cool with this again. We have to get through some zombies, man. Otherwise, there's no other way we can do it.
Yep. So they've been bringing it back full force.
It's definitely back. I think it probably works better on their Commonwealth armor.
Yeah.
Because except the armor actually gets somebody killed in this episode too.
Yeah.
April, poor April. We knew she wasn't going to last long.
I mean, that was just. I mean, you knew at the minute they saw her what was going to happen there. But
Sebastian has an interesting comment before he sends them in, which is like, you can't shoot your guns down there because the Commonwealth tracks our bullets.
Yep.
I assume that just means like inventory. Like if you come back with bullets that are unaccounted for, you have to account for them. I don't see the problem. They live in a zombie apocalypse. How are they not all the time shooting bullets?
And also, who's gonna like really like if you have some rounds that go into a walker's body, who's gonna actually recover and trace and whatever? It doesn't seem like that is plausible to me.
Yeah.
Unless there's another way that he's talking about tracing them. So I don't think. But it doesn't feel like that they have enough technology or resources.
They don't have like RFID on these rounds. Right. That's for sure. I feel like this is just like you have to account for every bullet that you've been issued by the quartermaster, which I think you can probably do because zombies.
Yeah. So in any case, they make it through their heist. April does not, but they find out that she's on the list. They
do.
I think, yeah, maybe that's in the next.
Oh, HA.
No, but her name was on the list, and I did recall that.
Okay, I mean, it's a long list. I didn't see it, but we also find out that they've sent 30 or 40 people into this building. She was just the last group of 12 before they sent in our two favorite Negan, or not Negan, sorry,
Right.
Daryl and Rosita, who basically managed to take care of business. Daryl, I feel like in the garage when he's trying to turn on the solar power generator, has way more trouble with zombies than he should.
Right.
It
I
takes him a
agree.
while.
Takes him a while. I do think that based upon the things that April has told him, that the list is probably a group of people that have either compromised themselves, need help, have family that could be you could exert pressure upon to get
So
things
why would
out
Tyler
of them.
Davis be on that list? He's compromised, I guess, but
Compromised maybe because he messed up and he's got family that he has to support, which he mentioned, and that she also mentioned that she's got like
two kids, or yeah, she said she
kids
has
or
kids,
something.
which is messed up.
So, and we also see that with Sebastian, that's the threat that he makes to Rosita and Daryl, is about their kids.
I
And
can't believe he's still alive.
yeah, exactly. So anyway, they get through this. Mercer,
Well, Mercer
um,
and Carol show up. And I knew as soon as I heard machine guns outside the safe
yeah,
room, I was like, oh, there's Carol. Carol's coming. Was
right.
not really expecting Mercer to be there. I don't remember Mercer and Carol having a tight relationship.
Me
Like
neither,
she
but
could
I
go to
guess
him and be like, hey, there's trouble at the old rich
yeah,
person's house. And he's like, okay, let me grab two machine guns.
yeah.
Huh?
And so, but this is the part where we see Mercer sort of start to. I mean,
Well,
he's
clearly.
already he's been drifting into their lane.
So,
So
so now that answers that question for me. Like he's going to be a friendly. That's great.
yeah,
Maybe not 100%, but he's certainly just killed two of his own soldiers, quote
right,
unquote, because they actually didn't answer to him and treated him with some derision,
right,
like the stupidest decision ever.
yeah. But they get out of it, and then Sebastian is, like psyched that they got the money, gives them their cut, and so now there's that situation
And
that
he
will.
does that in front of Mercer too.
Yep.
Like
So
there's this element of this that is just out in the open that is wild to me.
yeah,
How
yeah,
so, and especially when Carol goes in to talk to Hornsby and is like, so yeah, Sebastian was doing this crazy thing, 40 people are dead, but we got the money, they got the money. And when he's like, oh, thank goodness we finally got it,
yeah,
and you're either in line or you're in my way. And Carol does that amazing Carol thing where she channels some Machiavelli in his office and is just like, yeah, you're part of the solution, part of the problem. He's like, thank you for understanding me, Carol. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, dude, you don't understand. You're talking to a chameleon.
yep. And so anyway, a little bit more to come on that, I suspect, with
I suspect
Sebastian.
so too.
That whole
So have
Sebastian.
you actually watched the next two episodes also?
No, I did start to watch it, but I stopped myself for the exact reason that just happened. Like I just can't keep
What
everything.
self-control?
Not total self-control. Just I was like, this isn't gonna bode well because there was so much to keep straight with these two.
So here's my question, big picture question for the Commonwealth. With Hornsby's activities, which feel multi-layered at this
Yeah,
point, with his like PR assassin team, this
yep,
other stuff, he's shipping weapons.
yep.
Can the CA, the Commonwealth, can they survive if he is having to be cut out like a cancer, which I assume is kind of what has to happen here?
Mm-hmm.
Will this Commonwealth survive that
Well, I think it
event?
depends on what he has in store. And I
Mm.
think there is going to be, you know, uh, I think we're going to see that there's going to be something that happens, and I do think Hornsby has a lot more going on, or Hornsby and Milton has a lot more going on than we even know. And I feel like Milton's a lot more aware of the stuff that Hornsby is doing than we are supposedly privy to at this point.
Yeah, maybe.
Based upon her comments to him before, I think that there is a shadowy something that they are both in cahoots about.
Because frankly,
But
this outreach never made any sense to us
yeah,
anyway.
it doesn't make any sense. So I think we're going to have to see what happens there. I don't know that they're going to get into all of this. It doesn't feels like there's like a lot of storylines to wrap up before, again, this is like what the third, like this third of the season is over in a few episodes,
And
and
yeah,
I
it
don't think
is.
they're going to be able to get to all of it. So I think it's going to have to be, they're going to probably leave some things hanging. But um, as it stands, we have the whole complex situation, and it's pretty clear that this group has not taken the weapons. So then the question is, who has? Which, becomes pretty clear. And we also have, I don't want to say lines being drawn, but we've definitely got our community of people, our originals, our OGs, like Maggie and Aaron and Gabriel and all that. Aaron and Gabriel are now in a pretty bad spot because of all this stuff that has happened in this complex.
Yeah, they're certainly the only survivors of the whole party that went out. So that's going to be be odd. Yeah.
Right. So it's I don't know. That is something that is going to have to and in the midst of all of this, you've got Negan and Maggie becoming much more aligned. I mean, you have them fighting it out and then coming to some kind of peace or at least shaky truce, right? Because Negan takes care of Herschel, he saves Herschel. And then even Negan and Herschel have I don't want to say a resolution.
I don't think it was resolved at all. In fact, the last thing Negan says to Herschel is you grow up and you come find me and we'll settle this or something
Which by the way, Kill Bill, right?
Yeah.
Kill Bill. That's almost exactly what Beatrix says to Black Mamba's daughter.
Yeah.
After she's destroyed her, right? So it's those kind of common tropes going on, but in the meantime, they're semi on the same side, at least in this sense, to try to survive and get through. And it's interesting because I do think that Maggie, despite her lack of trust for Negan, trusts him more than she trusts the Commonwealth, because at least he's the devil she knows. And she knows he's going to be totally honest with her. And so she finds out he's got something to live for. He's got a wife and a baby. And, you could see her maybe thinking, well, I'm going to take these things from him, but that's not kind of where they go on this. It feels like they're getting past that animosity, at least to some extent. By necessity, though.
Right.
So it's kind of an interesting thing to set up and what causes them to get there finally. So I don't know. And a little bit of this is in line with the speech Gabriel gave, which is that people have done bad things. People have done desperate things. And in the end, you have to move past those things that you did in those desperate times.
Such a good sermon.
Yeah, I know. So I don't know. So you've got all of these kind of dynamics going on and aligning some groups together, and our original team members kind of bringing in new members in the form of Mercer. And
Annie and her people.
Yep. So it's it's going to be, I think it's going to be interesting in the next few episodes. So that's sort of where we are in this. Was there anything else to talk about?
I think that was mostly it. It was those storylines. I'm also really curious where some of the characters who we haven't seen are. And I guess mostly it's really just Luke. I was talking about this before we started recording. Where the heck is Luke? He went off to live with his girlfriend in Oceanside, and we haven't seen him since. And I feel like that was in season 11. No, season 10, 9. It was a minute ago. And, maybe this is a scheduling thing but there are a lot of characters, not a lot, but there is definitely a handful of characters who have just disappeared off the show and never come back. I'm looking at you, Heath. Apparently Eduardo and Cal also fit into that. Sonequa Martin Green's husband.
Yep.
Scott Green, who plays Eric. He hasn't been on the show in a couple seasons either.
Yep.
So hopefully, I don't know, maybe we'll see them, maybe we won't. Maybe they just want to close this thing down before, without complicating it even more with more storylines.
Oh, but we do have to say that Leah makes an appearance at the very end of this, so we have to assume
one woman army. Leah has taken out the convoy
weapons,
and now she has so great. Leah, one person, has stockpiled these rifles or whatever the weapons are. Maybe it'll be explosives, and that's how she'll become a threat. But I'm just all right, how many like rifles can you shoot at once, Leah? Maybe she'll make a new Hwacha.
Yep. So All right. Well, if you have any thoughts on these episodes or this third of the season, feel free to send us an email, reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. You can leave us a note on our site, reanimatedpodcast.com, and then you can tweet at us, reanimatedpcast.com.
Yeah, reanimated PCast.
PCast. Yeah, that's it.
Not .com.
Not .com. But
yeah.
hey, lack of sleep.
Take that nap. And hit us up next time. Next time we're gonna get through the rest of season 11.2, and that will be great. So join us again next time on Reanimated, and thank you for listening.
Ciao.